radio enthusiasts, welcome to another video about early radio from the Roaring Twenties Antique Radio Museum. This video showcases one of the radio's most accomplished and least known men in radio history, Clarence Denton Tuska. Clarence Tuska was born on August 15, 1896 to Ida and David Tuska. He would turn out to be the couple's only child. Sadly, Clarence Tuska's father, David, would die when he was only 13 years old in 1909. Clarence Tuska would begin experimenting with electrical devices at age 11. At age 12, Clarence and his cousin built a small radio transmitter. Tuska would continue to build more powerful transmitters, including a spark coil transmitter in 1910. Tuska was a very industrious young boy who raised money for his hobby by making and selling rubber band-powered airplanes at a local toy store. In 1912, sales of the airplanes dropped off, so he built a crystal radio receiver to try to sell in the store. A local inventor, Hiram Maxim, bought the crystal radio set, then returned it to the toy store. Tuska wanted to find out why the crystal set was returned, so he found Maxim, and Maxim told Tuska he wanted a more professional receiver. So Tuska built him one, and over time they became good friends. Maxim was 72 at the time, so it was a grandfather-grandson type of relationship. Maxim became a role model for Tuska, as his father had recently passed away from a heart attack. Tuska and Maxim would communicate by wireless transmission. Tuska gave his station the call sign SNT, while Maxim's station was SNW. This was just before the Radio Act of 1912 went into effect, which required all radio transmitters to have a license. Tuska acquired his first official radio license in 1913. Most of the amateur licenses required radio stations to transmit on the 200-meter frequency or 1500 kilohertz. This limited the station's transmitting range to 25 miles. These radio stations were spark transmitters, and before the invention of the radio tube. Hiram Maxim decided to start a national relay organization that would have members relay radio transmissions between them so that radio messages could be sent great distances. This new organization would be called the American Radio Relay League, or ARRL. Tuska would be the new ARRL's secretary. In 1915, Tuska and Maxim started a new magazine for radio amateurs called QST Magazine. Tuska would be the chief operating officer and would work on the magazine in his attic. In April of 1917, the United States entered World War I, and all civilian radio stations were forced to shut down. Tuska volunteered and was commissioned as a lieutenant in the Army Signal Corps and posted in Washington, D.C. Later, he was transferred to Ellington Airfield near Houston, Texas, to start a radio training school. After the war, Tuska returned home to Hartford. The civilian radio ban ended in 1919, and Tuska was issued a new amateur radio license with the call sign 1AY. The ARRL was revived after the war, and in April 1919, bonds were sold so that the organization could buy QST magazine from Tuska. In June of 1919, the ARRL published the first QST edition under its ownership. In 1920, Tuska founded the C.D. Tuska Company in Hartford, Connecticut, initially selling radio equipment like this wave meter. Later, the company began selling radio receivers like this crystal set. Tuska purchased an Armstrong license so he could legally sell regenerative radios. Later, the C.D. Tuska Company applied for and was granted a limited commercial broadcast license in August of 1921. Listing Clarence Tuska's home address at 136 Oakland Terrace, where the new station would be located. The license assigned the call sign WQB to the new radio station, which was up and running by February of 1922, broadcasting on 360 meters or 833 kilohertz. The workload soon became too much for Clarence Tuska, and not long after, WQB began broadcasting, it ceased operations. WQB's existence officially ended on June 24, 1922. Things were going a lot better for Tuska at his radio company, Business was booming, and in March 1922, the company announced plans for a major expansion. By June of that same year, the company had moved to a larger factory and increased employment at the company from 35 to 175 employees. During this time, Clarence Tuska was also assisting the Hartford Courant newspaper to establish its own radio station, WDAK. Tuska loaned the news station some of the equipment from his company's radio station, WQB. In 1923, C.D. Tuska Company came out with the Superdyne Model 228 radio seen here. The new circuit was designed to eliminate annoying squeal that TRF radios of the day were famous for. One of the last radios Tuska would manufacture was the Superdyne Model 305 in 1925, as seen here. The end of the line for C.D. Tuska Company came in late 1925. Another radio company was looking to acquire an Armstrong license and, to that end, bought the C.D. Tuska Company, with the agreement that Clarence Tuska would go to work for the acquiring company. The company in need of an Armstrong license was the Atwater Kent Manufacturing Company, the largest radio manufacturer of the 1920s. While working at Atwater Kent, Tuska earned a law degree from LaSalle University. He left the company and began working for RCA as Director of Patent Operations. Tuska would become a radio patent expert and wrote several books over the remainder of his career. Clarence Tuska was also an inventor with over 20 patents awarded to him over his lifetime. Clarence had a wife, Edith Wilson, who was born in Scotland in 1895 and died after a long illness in 1973. Clarence and Edith had 2 children, James, born in 1928, and Shirley, born in 1930. In 1982, Clarence Tuska was the second person inducted into the American Radio Relay League's Hall of Fame. Sadly, Clarence Tuska died on June 30th, 1985. Clarence Stanton Tuska had the best of both worlds during his life. He was successful in his career and personal life. He was married to a loving wife and raised 2 successful children. His life story is an example to others and has earned him an honored place in radio history. That's it for this video. There will be more to come as we continue to investigate the early history of the world's first mass medium, radio. Thanks for watching.